Hi folks, this tutorial is going to walk through the process of how to take a character who's walking in place to taking him and having him walk through your scene. There are a couple things that you need to keep in mind before you jump into this. For one, you need to have an animation that's cycling properly, where the first frame is identical to the last frame. And if we look at the animation here, we have a 20 frame walk of Squirrely, who apparently has gained a few ounces, is trying to work off some of that extra weight, staying motivated by using his favorite food dangling in front of him. So you can see here in the animation I got 20 frames worth of animation. I do have it cycling, and for those of you who may not be familiar with what that is, it's simply going to your curves menu, going to post infinity and clicking on cycle. You can also do it pre-infinity, which is goes in the reverse direction here. You can also see that animation by turning on infinity in the view menu. So I'll go ahead and turn it off for now, just to keep things a little bit more clean. Now, if you are going to be animating your character through the scene, and then let's say you have him at some point changing the animation, whether your character comes to a stop or you want to layer on top of that animation, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and copy and paste your animation through the whole frame range so that it gives you that flexibility later on. I'm not going to bother doing that for the sake of this demo, but it's something you want to keep in mind. Another thing you want to keep in mind is the feet of the character. This is really important when building your cycle. Whenever the foot makes contact and is traveling backwards, you want to have that foot, that animation be perfectly linear. So you can see here on frame number 1, his foot makes contact and travels back. This is his left foot, screen right, going backwards. And then as soon as it starts lifting up, then of course the animation changes to get his foot back into the first contact position. But again, it's really critical that you have this line being perfectly straight. And also, along the same lines, you want both legs to have the same stride length. You can do that by copying animation over from one foot to the next and reversing some of your animation curves, or while you're building the cycle, you could be using some kind of mirror tool to copy one, to flip the pose over to the other side. Whichever way you do it, just make sure they're the same length. Now, both of those things, the stride length and the linear animation going back, have to do with keeping it so that the feet don't slide across the floor while the character's walking forward. You want to prevent that as much as possible. It's what I call Scooby-Dooing. If you guys have seen the classic Scooby-Doo cartoons, you've probably noticed they're walking across a background, their feet are often sliding across the floor. So it always, even as a young kid, it really bothered me. So we want to prevent that from happening, and those two things will certainly help do that. So the other remaining thing, we need to make sure that you have the right tools to do this, and you're going to need to get the CGM Toolbox from cgmonks.com. So make sure you get the CGM Toolbox. It's a collection of tools that are really useful. It's not just Josh Burton contributing. He's got other people helping out as well. So it's a great resource to have, and he's constantly updating it. It's, again, a really great resource to have. So go ahead and get that if you don't have that already. cgmonks.com, and I'll put that link in the on my Vimeo page as well. So that being said, we're ready to move forward, and we'll do that next. I'm going to quickly outline the process here before we start actually getting into it. For starters, we're going to animate the character node, the main character node. Now, typically that's a no-no. That's simply, for most purposes, simply there to place the character into your scene, or if you need to constrain into a vehicle or what have you. A lot of times I'll use that node. But we're going to animate it, and then we're going to transfer that animation from that node onto his feet, so we can then essentially get rid of the animation, and it'll then be baked onto his feet instead. And then we're going to do that through a process using the Lockinator. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up. But even before we get into the Lockinator, which I'll cover that in just a minute here, let's go ahead and get some animation on this main node here. Probably the quickest way to do this would be to create a simple curve. I'm then going to go ahead and clean up that curve so that it's nice and clean. I'm going to attach the character to that curve, create an animation curve. Do that by going to the Animate menu, Motion Path, Attach to Motion Path. Now in doing this, I want to make sure that I have the right front axis. So the character's front axis is Z. So I'm going to attach it and then scrub it through and we can see that animation happening. Now you can see that we do have some problems. We have a lot of slipping going on, plus the character is easing in and out of that walk, that movement, which we don't want. So we're going to go into the graph editor here, take a look at this curve. For starters, we're going to make this curve linear. And then I'm going to find a stretch of path that's nice and straight. Anytime the character is going to be banking a corner, going around a curve, there is going to be some slippage on the feet because one foot through the curve is going to be will need to, in reality, need to be covering more distance than the inside foot. And in those cases where he's making the turn, we will have to do some animation cleanup afterwards. But the best way to handle this is on the straight section here, right through here. That's where we're going to try to limit the amount of slipping or eliminate it as much as possible. So right now, he's not moving fast enough. His feet are slipping backwards. So to fix that, we're going to need to increase this key here, add more value to that. Make sure I got the move tool. Add more value, scrub through it, and then check it. It looks pretty good. It looks like he could stand. Actually, that back leg looks pretty spot on. So again, as soon as he starts entering this curve, this corner here, you can see how his inside foot, his right foot is going to be slipping a little bit more than the outside foot. Anyway, so it's good enough for government work, so we're going to go ahead and move forward with this. So now that we have our character walking along a path, we're going to transfer the animation from his feet onto locators. The first thing we need to do is create those locators, and that's where Lockinator comes in. So with his feet selected and his hip, we're going to go ahead and say just lock selected. Let me make sure I have locators turned on so we can see those. And those locators are now in the scene. There's a relationship between those locators and the feet, which is really important, but they're positioned in the same spot, oriented and snapped in the right place. Now we simply need to take the animation and bake it, essentially bake it from the feet onto those locators. So with this locator still selected, I'm going to go into my Lockinator options here, click on Bake. Now you can adjust your frame range if you want. Let's see, in this case, he actually ends at around frame number 90. I'm going to do 90. I can then click on the current range. It'll update that, put the end frame at 90. Now with the animation options, we want to choose all. Now what this option does is it basically looks at the keyframes that are on the feet. It only keys the locator where there's keyframe data on those feet. Now the problem is that we may have edited our curves, our tangents, and that kind of information isn't being transferred over, so it's not going to be an accurate representation. So by keying all, the animation set to all, it's going to key every frame for that locator so that we'll get a direct translation between the foot and that locator. So let's go ahead and with those options set, click on Do It. It's going to run through the animation. Excuse me. So now the animation has been transferred to those locators. We can now at this point delete this motion path, select our main character node here, zero out the transforms, and still play it through, and you'll see that those locators are indeed going off on their own. Now we need to reverse the process. We need to grab his feet. And simply, same process, just click on Do It. Lockinator is smart enough to know what you're trying to do, and it's going to now transfer that animation over. And as you can see, when we look at the animation curves here, I'm going to take a look at the graph editor. It did bake all that animation onto that foot control. We can now go in here for cleanup, so places where the foot is still slipping. Let me find a place here. It might be a little bit more obvious. Like right here, where his foot makes contact here. You can see a little bit of slipping going on backwards where he's going into this curve here. I can isolate those translates and then clean up that section in between where it's moving. Copy and paste the animation over, make these values the same, what have you. And then with just a little bit of cleanup here, we can get that foot to be locked in place. It's probably in the translate Z more than anything. Yeah, you can see the animation curve where this should be flat. And now his foot is locked in place. We can at this point delete those locators. We don't need them anymore. And we are done. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And now for the final show.